Hey, it's New Thought Talk. I'm your host, the Reverend Steve Walling from the Spiritual Awareness Center located in Fresno, California, and welcome to the show today. So I'm going to start off right here because it's the beginning of the year, and I'm going to ask how many of you have made it this far. And it doesn't make any difference, particularly what the date is, because statistically, most of you haven't, and given another couple weeks, about 99% of you won't have anymore. And what I'm talking about is been able to implement your New Year's resolutions. You know, it's something we do at the beginning of each and every year, and you know, it's become kind of a perennial point of humor that we make our list and we get to begin to get through the year or get into the year, and somewhere, somehow, some way, it's gotten dropped by the wayside. Well, you know, there's people that have actually done statistical studies, and somewhere between the 15th of January and around the 1st of February, about 99% of us that have made New Year's resolutions will have already broken them, forgotten them, and moved on into the year. And taking our year in this year as we have in all years past. And, you know, in a sense, it's kind of humorous, but I want you to consider something for a moment. Consider the value that you are. And you are valuable. You know, a lot of us don't think of ourselves in those terms as being valuable, but in truth, we really are. One of the things that we share in New Thought Religious Science is the idea, the concept that we are a creation of the divine creator, spiritual source, that which we call God. And, you know, any way you cut it, any way you look at it, if God is our creator, our maker, and I do believe that God is, then we've got to be important. There's no unimportant creation by the infinite source of all that is. And yet we get into life and society and things, and we just move on. We don't think about it. Well, you know, as you go into this year, maybe there's a resolution that you've had in the back of your mind from time to time, year to year, that maybe this is the year that you want to connect with that spiritual connection, you know, that inner urge that says, you know, there's got to be more out there than what I'm experiencing. You know, this, I've heard about God, or I've been in a religion that's talked about God, but it never resonated with me. I never really quite got to it, never quite really figured out what it was. But, you know, I moved on. I didn't worry about it. But, you know, each year that urge is there, that desire to make that connection. And maybe this is your year to do so. So as you begin the year, if that's one of the things on your list, I want you to consider a couple things. You know, like I say, I am the minister of the Spiritual Awareness Center, and we meet at the Fresno Soap Company Theater, which is located at 1470 North Van Ness, just there in the Tower District. And we meet there on Sundays at 10 o'clock for our meditation and 10:30 for our lesson. And I put it in those, I phrase it specifically that way because if you're used to going to a church experience on Sunday, we're not it. You know, if you want, you know, a lot of celebratory, what I'll call feel-good stuff, and there's nothing wrong with it, but we're not it. What we are is a spiritual gathering of individuals that are seeking to create more in their life, not just more abundance, whether it be financial, whether it be spiritual, whether it be, you know, in relationships or health or whatever, but more in their life as the expression of their life, because we are valuable and we are important and we are creations of the divine infinite creator, and therefore we have a purpose. Each and every one of us has a purpose, and we don't think about our purpose so much oftentimes. I mean, we might be a parent, we may have a job, we may be, you know, a spouse, whatever it is, however it is that we define ourselves, we see, and this is on hows, and we define our life in that way, and we move on. But there's more to it. There's more to it for each and every one of us. We have a purpose. And our purpose is to express life maximally. And if you have not heard that expression in that way before, let me clarify that a little bit. all life urges to express itself. If you, and I have had a background at one time in the healthcare industry, and if you look at life, its very beginning stages, whether it's be a fertilized cell or just a cell that splits, there is an energy there, and it seeks to express itself. We know that as human beings, we're an incredible story, that out of all the different possibilities that happened at that one point in time, millions of different possibilities, we were the one that ended up being the person that we are. At that point, when the egg became fertilized, bingo, we're us. And then we were born, and we came into the world. And the odds of that happening is phenomenal. But yet, here it is. It happened. We're here, and we're expressing life. And we've grown up in life, and maybe we've been successful in life. Maybe we're still struggling in life. Maybe we have questions about life. And we turn not to necessarily educational institutions for that answer, but we turn to a spiritual connectedness within ourselves, and that may lead us to a church. It may lead us to some type of a personal spiritual philosophy. And in truth, oftentimes there are many people that seek a spiritual life that they're not even sure if they define what people normally call God as God. They just know that there's something within them that they can connect with on a spiritual level that becomes important to them as they walk their path, as they walk their journey. And in New Thought and religious science, we're really not bothered by how it is or what it is that you call the divine principle, whether you call it God or whether you call it Allah or Jehovah or anything else. What it is personal to you. How you understand it, though, becomes very important. It's how you express life. Your definition of the divine is played out in the way that you express life. If you believe that God is an infinite, everywhere presence that is available to each and every one of us, your relationship to life experience is not that life happens to you, but life is happening for you, that things are unfolding for you. And if things are unfolding for you, then you've got to have the ability to deal with those things that unfold, and we believe that you do. We believe that everything that you need, want, and desire is contained within consciousness, within yourself, within your heart. And so we begin to move in our path, move in our journey, and it starts with our understanding that, one, we are valuable, and two, what is it and how is it that we define God? So if you'd like to join us on Sundays at the Spiritual Awareness Center, I'd love to have you there. It would be educational at least, and hopefully it would be a spiritual connection that you can put into practice in your day-to-day life. And the thing is, it is a spiritual practice. Ernest Holmes, in writing the book called The Science of Mind, which we base a lot of what we teach on, on the cover of the book, he says here, it is a philosophy, a faith, and a way of life. Oftentimes people think of spirituality as that which what we do on Sundays, or it's that which we do at the end of the day when we have our prayer time, or it's that which we do when maybe we're meditating, all those various things. But in truth, the mere fact that we're living is spirituality. The mere fact that we breathe is spirituality, because there is just this life principle of which we all share a part of. And that life principle is the divine principle. It is that which we call God, and God is spirit. When the master teacher was telling us that God is spirit and we must worship him, however you want to call it, in spirit, he's not talking about meeting necessarily in a Sunday group. He's talking about something that's very personal to each one of us. The reason why we do meet on Sundays is, one, it is the day of the week that most people are familiar with that, but it's also that time when we can come together and we can share with our like-minded spiritual sojourners, if you will, with what's going on, and we learn new tools to use. We learn new ways, and we share. And also, if we have needs that need to be addressed in a prayerful way, those needs are also addressed. And so, how you choose to have your Sunday experience, if if a traditional experience is what you like and maybe need, want, desire, well, we're probably not what you want. But if you're looking to grow spiritually, if you're looking to learn things, tools, to techniques that you can implement and put into practice in your day-to-day life so that you can, at a higher level, enjoy the spirituality that you're already living. When I say enjoy, I mean that in a way that you can transcend the day-to-day humdrum of life, and you begin to become a participant on an emotional level, on a spiritual level, on a feeling level. You begin to see that although life comes at us at the speed of life, it's not what happens in life that determines our experience, but it's how we believe about what happens that determines our experience. And if we believe that God is behind every and all things, then we begin to look at our experiences a little bit differently. Sometimes those things that happen that we may want to call problems, we begin to see they're lessons. They're not just obstacles, but they are opportunities for us to learn, to grow, to expand. And because that is the nature of life itself, as we do that, as we do grow, as we do expand, as we do overcome these things, it's amazing how we begin to experience within ourselves a greater life experience, a more spiritual life experience. And we begin to look for more ways to do this. And the neat thing about this is as we do that for ourselves, we affect our friends, our families, we affect our communities, our co-workers, and in truth, we affect the entire world. And that's how we begin to see that changes that we want to see in the world don't happen out there. Changes we want to see in the world begin here. They happen in our heart, in our being, in our consciousness, and we bring them into the world. And if we see in the world things where people are struggling, we don't have to buy into the struggle, but we can definitely begin to buy into the creation of a space of peace, harmony, and serenity, where that chaos and that disharmony doesn't have to hold sway anymore, and that good, what we call good in the way of abundance, good in the way of health, good in the way of prosperity for individuals in all areas and all aspects of their life, begin to be demonstrated. As you may have seen or experienced sometimes where maybe you've been a little bit down in the doldrums, and you've come across somebody that's very up energetically, and by the time you leave them and walk away from them, all of a sudden, you're feeling more empowered, more energetic, and you can't put your finger on why, but you know that it's happened. It's happened for a reason, and it's happened because that individual brought something into your space energetically that you, up until that point in time, weren't focused on, and somehow you've been influenced. But you can do this intentionally. You don't have to experience it coincidentally to who you walk into or come into relationship with. Anyway, we're going to talk more about that. We're going to take our first break, and I'll catch up on this when we come back. Thank you.
Hardworking, experienced, and capable. With a record of success over more than 2 decades, the law office of Kevin G. Little is one of the preeminent small firms in Fresno. We represent our clients in a variety of matters, including civil rights, employment, personal injury, general civil litigation, family law, bankruptcy, and criminal cases. Our firm also offers excellent mediation services in civil and family law matters. We approach each case with dedication, aiming to protect you and exceed your expectations. Contact us today at 559-342-5800 and visit kevinglittle.com.
Visit Princess and the Pauper, where you'll find everything from new and consigned furniture, lighting and art, a line of candles, French soaps, and mineral paint. Whether your style is old world, modern, or a little bit of everything, you'll find it at Princess and the Pauper, located at the southeast corner of Bullard and West. And now you can visit Princess and the Pauper's online store at princessandthepauper.net.
Shula Davis is your farmer's insurance agent, and she'll help you find the insurance plan that's right for you. Call 559-900-2744 or email sdavis5@farmersagent.com.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Well, welcome back to New Thought Talk. I am the host, the Reverend Steve Walling from the Spiritual Awareness Center in Fresno, California, where we meet on Sundays at 10 o'clock for meditation and 10:30 for our Sunday lesson. And once again, I want to invite you to join us on Sunday. We have a very enthusiastic and positive experience. I want to read you something here. This is this is an opening poem in The Science of Mind that Dr. Ernest Holmes wrote. And I want you to think about this in relation to an invitation to life experience itself. And he says, "Peace be unto thee, stranger, and enter, and do not be afraid. I have left the gate open, and thou art welcome into my home. There is room in my house for all." He says, "I have swept the hearth and lighted the fire. The room is warm and cheerful, and you will find comfort and rest within." Has a nice feel to it, doesn't it? He says, "The table is laid with the fruits of life and are spread before thee, and the wine is here also, and it sparkles in the light. I have set a chair for you where the sunbeams dance through the shade. Sit and rest and refresh your soul. Eat of the fruit and drink of the wine. All is yours, and you are all welcome." And you are all welcome. You know, that is a concept that in religious science that we really see as a foundational concept, that we are all welcome. We're all welcome into this life, that God created us, created the space that we live in, and actually expresses as God's self through all the space in each and every one of us in the enjoyment of this life, in the experience of this life. And so, you know, we ask the question, if God was to create man in his likeness and image, and we're told that that's so, why would he do so in such a way as to limit man, to make him live a life experience of suffering and bondage? And in truth, I don't believe there is any good reason for that, or good reason to understand it. And I know it's been taught for centuries, and I know that there are people that believe in that, and if that's your belief, you know, so be it. But if you feel an urge within yourself to seek something beyond that, and if I use the word greater, that doesn't denigrate somebody else's personal belief. It is my concept of experiencing something greater in our day-to-day life experience. You are welcome to join us or any of the other New Thought centers and churches around the Fresno area. We take our Sundays very seriously in the lessons that we learn. We learn that this infinite God is in each and every one of us is everywhere. We learn that we define God not as a being that sits on a golden throne somewhere that keeps a list that's vindictive or that is that wants retribution or desires some kind of a spiritual or a physical sacrifice, but in fact is a loving being. And we believe that that's the God that the Master Teacher talked about when he talked about Abba, his Father. That this loving being that created everything out of itself, and that means that we're all part of the creation, that we're all here to experience not only life, but experience life fully. We are important. We each have value, and the value and our purpose and the importance has nothing to do with anything else in the rest of the world. It has to do with how we express, how we experience life. And when you put life in that context, it no longer becomes a trudging journey that we have to get through, work through until we get to an end point. But life becomes an adventure of sorts. That if in truth heaven is on earth and is the kingdom of heaven is to be found within, then we don't have to go very far. But we do have to make that trip. We got to make that journey. And society and teachings for so many years have said that's not the place to be. But I believe it is, and I believe that for each and every one of us that see a greater possibility in life, that see that life can return to us good on so many levels, and as it returns good to us and we put good back into it, that we see more good expressed in life generally. And, I mean, let's face it, there's a whole lot of chaos going on in the world right now. It's not going to be solved by somebody telling anybody else how they've got to live or what they've got to do. And we all tend to do that, because we all know what's best for everybody else. Oftentimes we don't know that for ourselves, but we seemingly know it for everybody else, and we get caught up in that. And as we get caught up in that, there's a part of us that some people call the ego, and it can, left on its own devices, begin to rage within our life expression and experience. And it tells us that we're less than, and it tells us that we have to beat down someone else in order to raise ourselves up, and we've got to win, and therefore someone else has to lose. But if we just stop and we open ourselves up to the divine principle, if we realize that we're all valuable, if we realize that God is expressing through each and every one of us, if we realize that our purpose here is to express our individual lives in such a way that we maximize our life experience, no one has to lose for us to win at that level. No one has to give up for us to get ahead. That not only do we not lose, not only do we not demand that others lose, but in our moving forward, we lift up others with us. We bring others to the forefront with us. We hold others up and we support them as they go through their journey, because in truth, we're all one. We're all, whether you want to call us sisters and brothers of the divine principle, it doesn't make any difference. There's just one family of humanity, and we're all a part of that. And all of that is just God expressing on an individualized basis within each and every one of us the truth of all that God is. I don't know. I when I first came to religious science, it was kind of an amazing way of looking at things for me. And over the years, I ended up deciding that I wanted to share this with people. And I've watched over the years, as I have shared it with people, lives change in many different ways for the better, whether it be more prosperity, whether it be greater health, whether it be just peace and harmony in their day-to-day life experience. Our needs for each of us are very individualized, and therefore no one else can tell us what we need for ourselves. And as long as what we need, as long as what we want, what we desire is good, it takes from no one, then we place ourselves in an energetic harmony with this thing we call God, the divine principle, that is there for us as we open ourselves up to us. When it was taught that it's done unto us as we believe, and that we must have faith, that if we do have faith, even the faith of something as small as a mustard seed, that faith is enormously powerful. Those are not just metaphors and not mythology, that there's truth there. And there are people that we can look at through history that have taken those truths and put them into practice in their lives, and we've seen various wonderful things unfold. Oftentimes we call them miracles, we call them miraculous, we call them unexplainable. But there is nothing that's unexplainable if you understand that with the divine principle, with God, all things are possible. So if you're a person today that you're seeking to make a spiritual connection, that you want to start your journey, now, I'm not saying that necessarily what we have at the Spiritual Awareness Center to offer is going to work exactly for you, but it might. And until you begin to make a choice for yourself until you begin to make a decision, that little urge, that feeling in the back of your heart or mind that has expressed itself as a desire to become spiritually connected, till you make a choice to answer that urge, you'll never know. But yet that's part of our purpose for being here. So, it's not about being the most prayerful person on the block, and it's not about being the most pious person on the block. It's about living life spiritually, 24/7. And again, that's not living life 24/7 in a monastic sort of way. It's living life abundantly. It's living life with love, with harmony, with peace, and it's living life knowing that you have aligned yourself with the divine principle, that you are expressing life as good. And so that when life comes at us, as it always does, life comes at us at the speed of life. And it's not about the circumstances, but how we react to the circumstances that will affect or have any sway over what we experience. And if we always remember that no matter what life brings to us, that this divine principle, God, is always there, then there is no problem that's bigger than our God. There is no obstacle that God cannot overcome or a principle cannot overcome. But until we know that, we feel like we're victims of life oftentimes. But stop and think about it for a minute. All those things that we've experienced in life, and we've all experienced those things in life that were overwhelming, that were big, that were seemingly beyond our ability to transcend. Unless we're in the middle of it right now, we've transcended all of them. Think about it. That terrible thing that was going to happen, or maybe did happen, that was going to end it all, maybe it ended something, but it didn't end it all. And what happened is we shifted our focus, our life experience, and maybe we learned from it, maybe we didn't. And oftentimes, life has a way of coming back at us with the same lesson over and over again until we get what often is called the blessing from that lesson. We are valuable. We are valuable. We're valuable not because anybody says so, other than the mere fact that we are created by the divine, infinite creator of the universe. It's, sometimes I get beside myself when I realize that how science in the last 100 years has uncovered so many different things that heretofore were considered very out there. And yet, in spiritual places where new thought or religious science or divine science or unity were taught going back 100 years, people were talking about these things. Science hadn't gotten there yet, but it's getting there now. And that doesn't make us more right or more correct. It just tends for me to reaffirm the good that I've understood about this divine principle that I call God. And what I understand of that is something that anybody can understand. And as we begin to understand and open ourselves up to it, wow, it changes things, it changes life tremendously. We get caught up in the intellectualism, all the knowledge, the stuff that we hold between our ears. But there's something even more powerful than that, and that's the heart energy that we hold. At one time, we thought the heart was just a muscle that pumped blood. Today, we know that the heart is a generator. It generates an energy field that there's an organization called HeartMath that's staffed with scientists that have tracked this field that goes beyond our body substantially, so that there are things within the heart that, when we talk about, historically people talk about a broken heart or a happy heart. There's more truth to that than just mere metaphor. That when we have a broken heart, that we hurt, and we can hurt at a heart level. That when we have a happy heart, that energy goes and expands beyond us. And that's part of the energy that we share with people. It's not about what book knowledge we have. It's about the experiential energy that we connect with on a spiritual level. That's why when we think about God as spirit, and that we relate to God as spiritual beings. This is a spiritual universe, and we are spiritual beings. And we tend to get caught up in the fact that we experience it on a physical level. But this physicalness, everything that you see, everything that you're looking at right now at home on your computer, that you see when you look around your room or whatever, is just stuff that didn't exist. Somebody got an idea, it was created. What was it created out of? Well, it was created out of other stuff. And where'd that stuff come from? Well, it came from other stuff. But when you go back, at some point, you get to the raw stuff. And the raw stuff is the raw principle that we call God. And maybe that's not a warm and fuzzy way of looking at God, but it's truth. In the beginning was God, and that's all. If God is all that was and all that is, then all that is still some part of God. And we can't separate ourselves from that, which is pretty exciting when you think about it. But everything that we touch, everything we interact with, and everything that we experience in the physical level didn't exist at one time and won't exist in the future. And yet we are here, and we will continue to be, because we are spiritual beings. We are God expressed as us as spiritual beings. And so when the physical body passes away, we'll still be here to express ourselves as the spiritual beings that we are. It's amazing. You know, there's a story that I heard a while back, and it's kind of an interesting story. I don't know if it's true, but it was relayed to me as being true, so I'll take it at that level. But there was one of these tall skyscraper-type buildings in New York that was a housing complex. And, you know, I mean, they got them. They're tall. I don't know how many stories, 50, 60, 70 stories. But in this one particular building, and the building wasn't that old, they developed a crack up on the 42nd floor. Now, that's not a good thing in a tall building to develop a crack. So they got a hold of the building owner. The building owner got a hold of the architect that had originally designed the building, and he came out to look at it. And the super, which is the manager of the building, if you will, on the particular day and time that the architect was supposed to be there, hopped in the elevator and went up to the 42nd floor. And when he got to the 42nd floor, he saw the crack, but he didn't see the architect. And he couldn't figure it out. So he called down to the doorman, and the doorman said, yeah, the architect entered the building about 40 minutes ago. Well, do you know where he went? Well, I believe he went down into one of the basements. And in some of these buildings, the big tall ones in New York, they don't just have a basement, but they have multiple levels of basements. In this particular building, the lowest basement was the 6th floor sub-basement. And so the super goes down, and he found the architect down there on that 6th floor sub-basement, and the crack's up on the 42nd floor. He says, well, what are you doing down here? And the architect says, well, the crack may be on the 42nd floor, but the reason for the crack is here in the foundation. And what he found was that there was a night watchman who was building a garage in his house, didn't have money for the materials, and so each night he'd go down to the 6th floor sub-basement and pull one brick out of the wall, put it in his lunchbox, and go home. And he'd been doing this for 5 years, and he'd pulled a lot of bricks out. And he had weakened the foundation. And so the crack, as the expression of that weakened foundation, didn't happen down below. It happened up on the 42nd floor. And you see, the reason why I like this story so much is because it's a good metaphor for what happens to us in our life. You know, oftentimes as we're dealing with chaos per se, you know, and maybe we've got some emotional upset, or maybe there's physical upset. Maybe it's a disease issue that we're working with, or a job issue or whatever. That's our 42nd floor. That's way up there. The cause, the issue of what we're dealing with. We got to go to the foundation. And the foundation for us as spiritual beings takes us right back to our source, which is our foundation that will always provide for us when we go back to it. And on that note, we're going to take our next break, and I'll see you when we come back.
Come out this Saturday at 11 a.m. at Home Funding Corporation's free home buying workshop, located at 191 West Shaw Avenue, Suite 204 in Fresno, California. Seats are limited, so call now and reserve your seat. Call 559-418-0794. Again, the number is 559-418-0794.
We've been thinking about this for a while on how we can really match up economic development and workforce development.
In order to have successful businesses, the businesses needed a successful workforce. And so the EDC and the DSS partnered together to put together training programs that are tailored to specific industries.
We need to have our clients be private sector focused, private sector ready, and better to learn that from the private sector than from the government.
This was a different idea, and this intrigued me. I've got 3 guys out in the field working, no problem at all with them. Very good kids. I enjoy hiring people that need a second chance. The employees that work for us are our most important asset. That's why I have to have good employees. We need to all work together and try to figure out on how to do this, and that's why I like the program.
Help build the Reedley College Center for Fine and Performing Arts by making a donation at scccd.edu/donate. When you need a dentist who has a passion for superior aesthetics and comfort, you need Dr. Christopher Wong with Cedar North Dental. Call 559-432-4948 or visit cedarnorthdental.com. To book Zach Krikorian, email zackyboy@mindspring.com or call 559-348-8080. You can also friend request Zach Krikorian at facebook.com/zach.krikorian. When you need a realtor, call Alice Brown Harris with Guarantee Real Estate. Call 626-893-7663. Connect with Dr. Alan Hedberg. Watch Doctor Teach Me to Parent on CentralValleyTalk.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Listen to The Psychology Report anytime at thepsychologyreport.buzzsprout.com. Visit booksbyhedberg.com and order a book for your personal growth. And join the conversation on twitter.com/Alan G. Hedberg. Choose your phone, not your carrier, with Wireless Connection Merced, located at 3144 G Street, Suite 145 in Merced, California. Wireless Connection sells new and used phones, offers cell phone repair, and will unlock phones from any carrier. Call 209-626-5554 or visit wirelessconnectionmerced.com.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Well, welcome back to New Thought Talk. I'm your host, the Reverend Steve Walling, from the Spiritual Awareness Center, located in Fresno. Hope to see you some Sunday. Anyway, we've been talking about this whole concept of, God as spirit. And one of the reasons why it became my topic basically for today is because as we begin the year, as we go through our lessons and we learn and we teach, one of the things that we like to do is start with the beginning and our foundation, and that is the spiritual source and force behind all of it is, and we call that God sometimes, and we have other names for it, and it really doesn't make any difference what we call it. It's how we understand it to be, and how we define and understand that will ultimately define how we experience our life experience. So, we start off at the beginning of the year and we say, okay, there's this beingness, this infiniteness that we call God, but it's more than that. It not only is it the source of all things physical, but it's the source of all energy. It's the source of all love that we experience. It's the source of all good. And ultimately, if it's infinite, it cannot be a source of anything that is not good. And yet for, millennia, people have been taught that there's some kind of an opposing evil force. But there isn't. There can't be. You can't have infinite good and have any place for anything that's not. And that doesn't mean that we have a full understanding of what life experience brings us, but it doesn't change the fact that God is, and God is all that is. And so we experience that as part of our day-to-day life experience. As we wake up to that, as we embrace that as our foundation, our beingness, then we've got something to build on. So that as we go through our day-to-day life, when we get to that 42nd floor, there are no cracks, that we're solid. Now, truth be told, we all have our moments where maybe cracks appear. We all have our moments where we maybe struggle. We all have our moments where we might feel like we're alone. And if we fail to realize that God is always with us, then our experience will be as if we're all alone, but in truth we're not, and we can't ever be. So, to know that God is always with us, that we're never alone, no matter what we face, we always know that we have an infinite power greater than anything that we face, working with us and working with us by working through us at the level of our belief. So our spiritual journey is a journey of belief increase, if you will. It's opening up our heart and our mind and our consciousness and our day-to-day life experience. And in living that, living it robustly, living it abundantly, living it in such a way that as we prosper in our lives, that we share that prosperity with other people. We were born to be successful. We were created to be successful. I referred earlier in the show today that, the fact that we're here as the individual beings we are is a great success story. If you understand how the process, the physical process of fertilization takes place, it's amazing how successful we are, just to get to the point where we take our first breath. And yet from that point on, we have an infinite potential possibility of what our life experience will be like. And for most of us, we accept average. We accept okay. Now, accepting average and okay is not a bad thing, but how about above average? How about maybe better than average? How about maybe good? How about maybe robust? How about maybe abundant, prosperous? How about maybe just great? And that is the promise for each and every one of us, that we can live life at a great level. But we're never going to get there if we don't know that there's a there to get to. And so in New Thought, in religious science, we teach not only that there is a there, we teach and we share that there are signposts on our journey that we can pay attention to, that there are tools that we can use, that this faith, this philosophy is a way of life, and when we begin to live our life in a what I'll call a right manner, and that's not in reference to others being wrong. It just means that if we live in a right way, we're living in a way that is harmonious with divine principles. As we do that, as we begin to implement those kind of principles into practice in our lives, that doors open, things unfold, and life begins to share all of life's good and abundance into our own life. And we see it in people that on a daily basis we've been exposed to, that it's not that they're the most famous, it's not that they're the barons of the tech industry. That's not the people I'm talking about. I mean, those people, where they got to and stuff is absolutely wonderful, but they still have issues in their own journey that they're working on, as we all do. But when we understand that, we go back to our foundation. Our foundation is an infiniteness that is good, an infiniteness that provides for, an infiniteness that is the one life from which all life comes, that therefore we can never be apart from it, that we have not only a connectedness to it, but we have the ability to utilize it in our day-to-day life experience. And when we do that, we see life respond in a positive way. That's an exciting thing. And like I said earlier, that's when I first began to study New Thought, philosophy, religious science, and it excited me. And I thought how wonderful it is that I was able to learn this information and put it into practice in my life, and I felt called to share it with people. And so that's what we do. Now, I'm not the only one. We have other centers here in the Fresno area. There's the Center for Spiritual Living up on Clinton. There's a Unity Church. It's out on Shields. There is there's two more. New Thought Community, and then there's one out in Clovis, and for the life of me I can't think of the name of it. But their Sunday experience is a little bit different. Some of them are more church-oriented in their presentation. Some of them are more instructive in their Sunday presentation. But they're all filled with people that are on a journey of like-mindedness, seeking a greater good, not only to bring into their personal life, but to bring into the world around them. You know, when we let our light shine, all the darkness in the world still doesn't dim our light, and we can walk into any area of darkness and bring light to it. But we got to know that we can do that, and you can know. And we know what, not when we get it intellectually. We don't know because somebody told us. We don't know because someone else said they had that experience. We know when we begin to experience it ourselves. And this is where a way of life becomes important. Ernest Holmes, in writing The Science of Mind at the end of the general summary, he tells us that he'd rather see students put this philosophy into practice than to learn all the words of wisdom ever written, because without putting it into practice, basically it's just words. You can put into practice today the good, whatever good you've gotten from this conversation. You can go back and look us up on Facebook and New Thought Talk with Rev Steve. I think we got some stuff out there on YouTube that's available to you. But it's all there, and it's all for you. It's all for you to take and to let it sink in, and then see what you can be open to, see what you can put into practice in your life, and then see what demonstrates, what manifests, what kind of results happen. Because if you do, you know, I can tell you, it will change your life in a good way. You know, people get caught up in various things, and they get caught up in all sorts of fear and stress from society and so on. We don't have to live that way. And as we stop living that way individually, we stop creating more stressful, chaotic societies for people to live in. You know, it's a concept that sometimes is a little difficult for some people to grasp, because they think, well, if you're all this really light and love and positivity stuff, then the individual out here that's the antithesis of that is going to somehow take advantage. And you know what? It just doesn't work out that way. But you've got to experience it to understand what it is that I'm talking about. And you can experience it. You can, like I say, you can find it at the Spiritual Awareness Center. You can find it at the other centers here in the Fresno area. Or if you're out and about in some other part of the world that you happen to catch this online, you can go to findacenter.com. There's information there on most places in the world. I can't say it's necessarily up to date, but it's a place for you to start. You can find some place that's local and close to you. There's lots of good stuff out there, and there's books online. If you can't afford to study, you can go to newthoughtlibrary.com. And there's other things. You can reach out to me through our email address at madeirasac@gmail.com, or there's other centers. You can get their email address, phone numbers. You can leave messages or voicemails. People get back to you. Unity has a Unity prayer line. Most centers have if you call in, you can have people pray for you. While we were on during the show, I received a prayer request for a young person by the name of Dakota that will be part of my prayer work today and continuing. Dakota's experienced something in his life that's created some serious issues. But we know that there's a greater good and a God out there, that there is no issue that's so serious that God can't overcome, that with God all things are possible, that there's a divine perfection out there for each and every one of us to enjoy, experience, and to demonstrate in our lives. And we'll know that for Dakota also, and for his family, that God's love will express in and through each and every one of them, that the energy that's there will provide, and the substance that's there will give, and the goodness that's there and the love that is there will hold up and help people to transcend, because that's what God does, and we know that. We hold that in our hearts. So I can't think of anything else I want to cover today. I think we pretty much covered it. Welcome to the new year. I know that you all, at the beginning of the show, when I talked about your New Year's resolutions, you're all going, well, not me. What? I will tell you, statistics weigh against that. However, with the simple, most powerful thing that you can do, which is to make a choice, you can prove statistics wrong. Whether it's to make a connection spiritually, or just to get that new whatever it is that you want in your life, whether it's a new relationship, a new job, a new vehicle, or new education, whatever. It's there, and it's there for you. First thing you got to do is make a choice. You make that decision, and as we do that, as we make a decision to make our connection spiritually, You know, there is that in the universe that responds. There's a power and a presence for good in the universe that's available to each and every one of us, Ernest Holmes used to say, as we open ourselves up and make ourselves available to it, that God is good, God is ever present, and God responds when we go to God. And that's what I believe, what I teach, and what I've seen unfold in life. So as you go through this week, my friends, thank you for being with us today, and know that the light of God surrounds you, that the love of God enfolds you, and the power of God protects you. The presence of God watches over you, because truly, wherever you are, God is there and all is well. I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.
CentralValleyTalk.com